boxing fans, you are listening to Saved by the Bell podcast with my co-host, Dark Side of the Moon. Now listen, this is our last episode of 2024. And with that being said, we're going to talk about the sad news, the passing of Paul Bamba. We're going to talk about the zone subscription. And lastly, and most importantly, we're going to talk about the last fight of 2024, which is against Fernando Martinez against Kazuto Ioka in the rematch for the WBA Super Flyweight Championship. But before we get into that, Dark Side, how you doing? What's going on? Talk to us.
I'm doing pretty good, actually. You know, we can't complain, can we, as boxing fans? We had an absolutely fantastic year this year. We got pretty much all the fights that we wanted to get. I think we had 3 or 4 undisputed fights this year. And hey, we're lucky to get 1 undisputed fight in a year, and we got 3 or 4. So nobody can complain. Even in the combat sports world in general, I think it's been a good year for all. So I can't complain. But how you doing, my bro? And what did you make of this year?
I'm doing good, man. Absolutely great. I mean, it's that time of the year, isn't it? You know what I mean? Getting ready for 2025 tunnel vision. And speaking of 2025, Saved by the Bell podcast, the next time you see us, we'll be in a different kind of setup. You're going to see us a bit more professional, but we'll get into that in the next episode. But like you said, what a year of boxing has been. Absolutely crazy from the start to the end. I mean, think about it. Tomorrow is the 31st of December. When have you ever heard of a fight taking place on the 31st? And not just any fight, a WBA Super Flyweight title fight. It's unheard of.
Never.
It's almost like the year is finishing off with a bang, and we're putting the cherry on top of the cake or the cherry on top of the pie, whichever way you say it. So anyways, that's that. Let's get into this episode now. So we're going to talk about, firstly, we're going to talk about some sad news in the boxing world, the passing of Paul Bamba. Now, if you guys don't know who Paul Bamba is an American Puerto Rican fighter, cruiserweight fighter, sorry. He sadly passed away at the age of 35. The reasons for his passings are currently unclear. Some people are saying he passed away because he unalived himself. Some people are saying he passed away because he took too much brain damage. This is Saved by the Bell podcast, boxing podcast. You know what I mean? We don't sugarcoat nothing. You know what I mean? We don't entertain lies. So we can't really give you a confirmation of how he passed away. But what we can do is give a little tribute to Paul Bamba. I mean, Paul Bamba's story itself is inspirational, man. Think about it. No boxing background, hardly any amateur fights. The man was in the U.S. Marine Corps, and you know what's crazy? He's obviously talked about having PTSD, having all that trauma from being in the army, the Marine Corps, coming out of there, coming back to the ends, being homeless. Do you know what I mean? The man was homeless, and then he turned to boxing. And you know what's crazy? When he turned to boxing, he was sparring for $10 an hour.
That's shocking.
That's crazy. I mean, it shows you the desperation. It shows you the level that he was at the time of his life for sparring for $10 an hour. Do you know what I mean? And then, not to mention, boxing is ultimately what saved his life. Do you know what I mean? He was training at the Morris Park Boxing Club in the Bronx in New York. But you know what? Before we get into that, what's your thoughts on this? How do you feel about this, man?
Well, it's always a very, very sad time in the boxing community when anybody passes away, whether it be a boxer, a trainer, a cutsman, a ring announcer, anybody involved, a promoter, even managers. Everybody that's involved in the sport of boxing is valued in the sport of boxing. And it's never good news to hear that someone has passed away. But as regards to Paul Bamba, I think what he was able to achieve in the time of his career was quite remarkable. if you think about it, he had early losses in his career and somehow managed to bounce back, having 14 fights in 1 year, winning all by stoppage. This is unheard of. It's the kind of thing that you would have expected to hear in the 70s or maybe the 80s or 60s and all those older eras. But nowadays, we have doctors and we have physicians and we have all people that will come and say, hey, I think you've had too many fights this year. Maybe you better take a break. So it's remarkable that they allowed him to have that many fights, but also that he could win all and win them all by stoppage. So I think he's put his own mark on boxing, on the boxing world. Yeah, he didn't become one of the top talents, but he did put his stamp on the boxing world, and he will forever be remembered for having those 14 fights and winning them all by knockout.
Most definitely, man. I mean, you can't take his record away from him. 19 wins, 18 of those wins coming via knockout, only 3 losses on his resume. And like you said, he's had 14 fights this year alone. So that record is not going to be taken away from him. But it's sad news, man. Honestly, it's sad news. The man passed away at the age of 35. Young guy, man. Do you know what I mean? But listen, rest in peace to Paul Bamba. You know, may his soul rest in peace. And one thing I want to say before we move on, the sport of boxing, we don't discriminate against no religion, no race, no ethnicities, no genders. Do you know what I mean? Once you've entered the boxing community, we are one as a unit. So when one passes away, like you said, whether it be a fan, whether it be a referee, announcer, ring announcer, podcaster, content creators like myself and you, coaches, fighters, whenever someone passes away, it affects the community a lot. Do you know what I mean? But anyways, on behalf of the whole boxing community, rest in peace to Paul Bamba.
Yeah.
You know, your memory will forever live on, and your story will forever live on.
Yeah.
Anyways, man. All right, cool. Let's quickly move on to the Dazn app. Now, you mentioned to me not long ago that the Dazn has signed a deal with, was it Top Rank?
Yeah. Top Rank.
Do you know what? Why don't you introduce this one? Why don't you give us a little info on this one? Because I don't want to get anything wrong.
Okay, well, basically, Dazn have come up with a very smart business plan, which is whereby they're going to get a lot of the same promotional companies to work together by putting them all on the same network. And Dazn have recently acquired the rights to show all Top Rank fights. So from now on, all Top Rank fights will be broadcast on Dazn. For those people that don't know what this means it makes it a lot easier to make the fights. And the reason is, if you have 2 different broadcasters, both broadcasters will want to be the sole person who shows the content because it brings more viewership to their platform. But then there's also the problem of saying, well, both of you have it together. But then the companies won't be happy with that because then it divides the amount of viewers that they actually get to their platform. So by Dazn going and getting these rights to all these promotional companies, it makes these fights a lot easier to make. So I think this is really a brilliant thing for boxing. But what's your thoughts on it?
Like you said, it's a brilliant thing for boxing. I mean, listen, who do we have left that's not signed, that's not got a contract with Dazn? Is it PBC?
Yeah.
That's the only one.
Boxer, they're the only 2. Boxers
Boxer.
recently signed with Sky Sports, so they won't be acquired by Dazn anytime soon.
Okay, so we've got Boxer and PBC that's not signed to Dazn, but the rest of them are signed to Dazn, the major ones. I mean, think about it. Matchroom and Queensberry, these are the 2 major leagues. Do you know what I mean? Then you might have Top Rank.
Yeah.
Then you've got Golden Boy. So we've got majority of each organization under one banner, one roof. Do you know what I mean? But now let's talk about the subscriptions for the Dazn. Now listen, a lot of people are saying it's too expensive. A lot of people are saying, why do we have to pay for the subscription and then pay for the fights as well?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the subscription plan. So Dazn has 3 subscription plans. You can pay a one-off 1-month payment for $24.99. That's UK sterling pounds. You can do a Option number 2 is you can do a yearly contract, but you got to pay monthly installments for the whole year. That will cost you $14.99 per month. Or option number 3, which is the most best option, but then again, you still got to cough up a little bit of money, is, if I'm not mistaken, £119 annual one-time payment. So you pay all in one for £119. Now, those are your 3 options for the Dazn subscription. Now, this is where things get a little bit techie. Do you know what I mean? Because cool, you pay for the Dazn subscription. You get to see most fights. Do you know what I mean? That are not really that great. Maybe just some people you never heard of. But when it comes to the major fights now, such as Riyadh season, or if a fight takes place in O2, if a fight takes place in Wembley, maybe even in the States, some high-level names, you will have to pay for the package as well.
Yeah.
So this is where a lot of people are saying, what that, bro? You know what I mean? I'm gonna watch this on so-and-so platform, you know what I mean? Because, I mean, think about it. Your average Joe that's working a 9-to-5 job can't afford, it's a lot of money, bro. You can't afford this, you know what I mean? So not only we got to pay, depending on what subscription you choose, not only we got to cough up over £100, but we got to cough up £20 when it's each a big card. And if we saw what happened in 2025, which was this year, look at how many big cards that we had this year alone. So
Exactly.
how many times are you going to go and purchase a package from Dazn? That's going to cost you at least another 1 or 2 bills extra on top of the subscription, yearly subscription. Do you know what I mean? So it's a lot of money. Just give me quickly, what's your thoughts on the subscription plan and having to pay extra for the package is as well?
Well, the subscription plan, first of all, the obvious answer would be to pay the full amount if you can afford to do it, because it's going to be the cheapest overall. Look, I have to be honest, as a massive fan of boxing, I can watch just about any boxer's fight. It doesn't really bother me who it is so much. However, the main events that you really want to watch are the ones that they're going to be charging you for. Yes, there's going to be a lot of boxing, but people have more interest when it's a high-profile fight. So those are the ones that they're going to want to see. So as far as the being able to have to pay extra on top of it, I think this is a bad strategy. Because what you'll find is a load of people not wanting to take the subscriptions and then going and just buying the pay-per-view separately. So what will happen is they will lose a lot of subscriptions because people will just be like, well, there's a lot of other fights I'm not that interested in, and I can just go and watch the main events and pay the extra for the main events and then be happy. So me personally, I think that they'll find in probably 6 months' time, they'll need to change their strategy on that, because if they don't, they'll lose a lot of subscriptions, and that's not going to be good for where Dazn want to go. Because if people remember rightly, a while back, Dazn were claiming that they were going to be a platform that completely removes pay-per-view fights, and they were going to be the staple company that brings the future, so-called, of boxing, where the game has changed, and now we don't pay for pay-per-views, and it's all under one subscription, which sounds fantastic. But the reality is they didn't actually stick to that, unfortunately. And it's a bit of a sad place to be in, because a lot of people would have already paid for their subscriptions, thinking they're going to get all the big fights, and then find out later they have to pay for them as well. So that's my brief thoughts on the Dazn subscription and paying extra. What about you?
For casual boxing fans, I'll just break it down simply. Imagine paying for a Netflix subscription. So you pay for your Netflix subscription, but then you have to pay extra to watch a movie. It doesn't make any sense, does it?
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? So that's the most simplest way I can describe it. Netflix app and the Dazn app. Do you know what I mean? So that's just that. But you know what? Saying that, the Dazn app is one of the best streaming platforms for combat sports. Let's be real. But obviously, the money, the moolah, is a big key factor in this. But anyways, hopefully things can change in the future. But anyways, as of right now, Dazn is doing big things, and I think it is the leading streaming platform for combat sports. So big up to Eddie Hearn, big up to Dazn. Keep up the hard work. Bosh. Now, let's get onto it. Drum roll, please. We've got the last fight. I pulled out the paper as well. We've got the last fight of the year. This is the last fight of 2024. We've got Fernando Daniel Martinez versus Kazuto Ioka in the rematch. Now, these two have already faced each other in the past, which Fernando beat Ioka. Now, listen to this. Listen to this. Yes, he beat him, but check this. Did you know that Ioka, anytime that he's lost to an opponent, he's come back and beat them? And
I didn't know
I'll name something. So in December 2018, Ioka lost to Donny Nietes. Cool. In the summer of 2020, he's come back and beat him. Okay, that's one. After the fight against Donny, he faced a guy called Joshua Franco, which he drew against. No problem. In the rematch, he came and beat Joshua. So you see what I'm trying to say?
that. Yeah.
Kazuto Ioka is a classic textbook boxer. He's the type of guy that goes back to the drawing board, takes on the bad points, observes what happened in the fight, and comes back and improves. You can see in the results. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. You see in the results. Do you know what I mean? Let's quickly talk about both men's pro records. So Kazuto Ioka's pro record stands at 31 wins, 16 of those wins coming via KO, 3 losses, and only 1 draw. Now let's move on to Fernando Daniel Martinez's pro record. His pro record is at 17 wins with 9 KOs. Now I'm impressed with both guys. I'm also impressed by Martinez. Now listen, Martinez's last 3 opponents were his most credible wins.
Yeah.
They were his most credible wins on his CV. Now take a look at this. So when Martinez faced against a guy called Jerwin and Kajaz, he's beat him twice. That was his first step up. Cool. Some people say the first fight was a fluke, but he came back and proved them wrong. And in the fight after that, he faced a guy called Jade Bornea, defeated him as well. That was another step up. And then in the most recent fight against Kazuto Ioka, he defeated him as well. So you can see there's a pattern. In his last 3 opponents, he stepped up the levels each time, and each time he's come on top. So is this a sign? Is this Martinez trying to show us, listen, I'm ready for the big league? But we got to wait for tomorrow. We got to see if that was a fluke or if it, you know what I mean? But anyways, Martinez is a big puncher. He likes to stand his ground and bang. He likes to throw those haymakers. He's got rocket launchers in his hands. Do you know what I mean? And when he lets those rocket launchers fly, a lot of flyweights are in trouble. Now, Kazuto Ioka, on the other hand, he is your classic textbook boxer. You know what I mean? He's not wasting his punches. His defense is on point. You know what I mean? I like styles make fights. This is your classic boxer versus brawler.
Yeah.
It's gonna be an exciting fight. I'm not gonna lie. I'm excited to watch this fight. I can't wait for it. Listen, and it's for the WBA super flyweight title, so it gives you that extra oomph. You know what I mean? But quickly, Darkside, talk to us. What's your thoughts on this fight? And do you have a prediction for us? Let's fucking have it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, my thoughts on the fight were, after watching some more highlights of Martinez and of Ioka, it's made me realize that this rematch is going to be a whole lot better than what I originally thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a good clash, because really, if you think about it, it is a step up for Martinez, because Ioka is very, very experienced in the boxing world. So I think this is going to be a fantastic fight. You can see, like you said, it's boxer versus brawler. It's a technical fighter versus a slugger type approach. One guy is going to continue coming forward with bangs, whereas the other guy is going to pick his shots, be more technical, slip and move. And I think it's going to be an absolute war. And I can't wait for it, to be honest. It's an early one tomorrow. I think it's 11 a.m. UK time tomorrow. So it's going to be an early one. But hey, I'm looking forward to it. As far as a prediction, I don't want to sit on the fence, but I'm kind of leaning somewhat towards Ioka, based on the fact of the rematches that you said. Each time he has a rematch, he comes back and he gets the victory. And the reason I'm picking that is because I think he would have studied this fight and thought, where did I go wrong? And how am I going to improve in the next fight? Whereas Martinez is probably thinking, well, I won the last fight, so I'm probably going to win the next fight. Do you know what I mean? So it's an interesting sort of scrap between these two gentlemen. And my final prediction is going to be Ioka to win by, I think I'm going to go with split decision because I think it's going to be quite a close fight.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, listen, after watching the first fight, the fight was pretty close. Let's be real. It was action packed, back and forth. You know, the pace was kept consistent during the whole fight between both fighters. Like you said, one guy's gonna come forward, one guy's gonna step back, take his time, throw counters. You know what I mean? Maneuver. It's gonna be a classic fight. My predictions for this fight are, I'm gonna give it to Ioka as well, based on the fact that he improves every time he takes a loss, improves anytime he takes a draw. Do you know what I mean? He goes back to the drawing board and he comes back stronger. And based on their first fight, it was a very close fight. It could have been a draw. That's how close it was. So my thing is, in this fight, Ioka is going to come and show levels. Do you know what I mean? Maybe he underestimated Martinez in the first fight.
Maybe, yeah.
But anyways, I'm excited for it. I'm giving this one to Ioka on points decision. And there you have it, guys. Saved by the Bell podcast. This is going to be our last episode of the year. The next time you see us, we're going to be talking about Jaya Pataya. But enough of that. We will speak about that the next time. But anyways, for now, my peoples, much love. Have a good year for 2024. Celebrate with your family, New Year's Eve, and all them things there. Dark Side, you want to give the people a message before we go?
Yeah, man, I just wanted to say thank you to all our viewers, everyone who's watched the content, liked the content, and subscribed to the content. You know, we're just a small channel that's trying to grow. And the more you guys watch our stuff, like our stuff, subscribe to our stuff, it helps us with our progression. And we really appreciate that. So we all hope you have a fantastic New Year's Eve and a New Year's Day. And we will catch you in 2025.
Bosh.